Let's talk intermittent fasting, or IF. So intermittent fasting basically says your body is either in a fed state or a fasted state. So the fed state is basically you have a meal and you are digesting that meal. Insulin is around because that's its job, is to shuttle the nutrients into cells for 3 to 5 hours after. And when there's insulin around, there is no increase in fat burning. Your fat burning shuts off, right? When you're in a fasted state, insulin is non-existent because its job is done, and your body can go in then and use stored fat for an energy. So basically, in pure IF terms, you basically are fed for 8 hours and you're fasting for 16. So you can already see the challenges with that. Because it's a short window of eating and it's a long window without food. And no food can be taken in those 16 hours, or it butts you out of intermittent fasting right away for hours. And so you don't get any fat burning. It butts you out of fat burning for hours. And so you have to be really diligent with it. Now, some people play with it a little bit and they basically lengthen the amount of eating, say, for 10 hours, and then there's only 14 hours of fasting. That's kind of how I do it. I didn't call it intermittent fasting. I just know for me, I usually have my first meal around 9, and then I stop eating around 6:30. So that's 9.5 hours that I eat, and then I don't eat for the other 14 hours. Would that be considered intermittent fasting? Possibly in some intermittent fasting corners. Anywhere from 12 to 16 hours is what I've heard for intermittent fasting, but some purists are all about 16 hours, the more is better. So I suppose, depending on how you play it, I've been intermittent fasting for years, and that is the way I like to eat. I don't like to go to bed full, and I don't consciously look at it like I can only eat from 9 till 6. That's just how I do it. And there are times when I eat after 6. There's times when I eat earlier. So I'm not a pure intermittent faster because I'm not consistent with it. So the idea behind intermittent fasting is that some people will do it and they'll start and do it on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for example, because it's hard to go into the pure form of intermittent fasting, which is 16 hours without eating. Think about it. You wake up at, say, 7, and if you have your breakfast at 9, then you have to have your last meal at 5. So you're going to be cramming in anywhere from 4 to 5 meals in just 8 hours. And you don't get to eat anything after 5 p.m. and you don't get to eat till 9 a.m. the next day. It's a long haul. You could, what some people do is play with it. They'll wake up at 7 and they'll delay till 10 or 11 to eat so that they can then carry it over into 7 at night. And then they aren't as hungry in the evening and it doesn't disrupt their sleep. So intermittent fasting is something you need to play with. Other people will do intermittent fasting the pure way, 16 hours not eating for 6 days a week. And then Sunday is when they will, open the barn doors and have at it and enjoy that day. That works for some people too. So intermittent fasting is not necessarily a day in, day out thing. And I've been able to use it through pre-contest as well. But I kind of meander with my own body. I don't like going 16 hours without eating because I have to look at my performance in the gym. And so that's the other deal. Some of the cons with intermittent fasting is, are you going to wake up and try to train in the morning? Is that your normal training time? And if you are, and you have been fasting for 16 hours, you're going to have a pretty tough time. Some people like it, but they don't recognize how their performance is hampered until they then take that and apply food before training, and their energy levels and their performance goes way up. And performance in the gym defines our goals in physique development. So if you perform well in the gym and you can lift heavier and longer and recover, then you're going to have more success in the physique. So you have to measure that off with the perils of intermittent fasting. The other deal with intermittent fasting is because you're eating less and you're having long fasts, it can challenge thyroid function. Thyroid is your metabolism. Challenge sleep, and in women it can change their hormones, and especially in women wanting to get pregnant, it can be challenging because the estrogen drops. And when the estrogen drops, of course, that is the baby making, and a lot of women are challenged with trying to get pregnant when they are doing an intermittent fasting lifestyle. So you have to play all those things in. It can also mess up your hormones, and for women, it can set off alarm bells that you are going into a starvation mode. And we know with starvation diets, what happens is we can lose weight and we plateau because the body is signaled. In some women whose bodies are more sensitive than other bodies, just genetically or metabolically, or women who have done dieting for a lot of years, their bodies are more sensitive to any cues that you're cutting calories and you're going to starve the body. And it actually works in reverse. If you're looking at intermittent fasting as a weight stabilizing or weight loss tool, it can actually alarm your body into saying, uh-oh, can't do that, gotta hang on, because she's starving us here. So you have to play it out, and you have to play with it over time as well. So intermittent fasting can be a valuable tool. It can be a tool that you can use 3 or 4 days a week. It can be a tool where you can manage the fast times and not go 16 hours. You might want to try 12 or 14 hours. Is that really intermittent fasting? I don't think so. I think it's just called not eating after dinner and not eating too early in the day. And but again, when you have intermittent fasting set in 8 or 12 hours a day of feedings, you're going to eat less calories probably because you don't have the time to consume as well. So you naturally can lower your caloric intake, which can also help lowering the body fat too. So you have to be able to learn the cues, learn your body, and see if it's something that works for your body rather than against it. And in the back of your intermittent fasting document, I have a list of things to look out for. So these are the possible things that can happen with intermittent fasting if you take it to the extreme. You can either try it and see, or you can break into it slowly, like I mentioned, doing it every other day or doing it a couple days a week. And then every day you can add in another day of intermittent fasting. Define what your hours are. Be set in those hours. 9 a.m. you start, 8 p.m., 5 p.m. you quit, or if you're doing like longer feeds, whatever works for you. But for some women, their menstrual cycle will stop. They'll have problems with sleep. Their hair might fall out because that's thyroid, right? You start to develop dry skin or acne again. This is all lowered thyroid. You don't recover from workouts. That's thyroid and recovery abilities. Your injuries are slow to heal. Thyroid again. Your mood starts to swing. You have less tolerance for stress. You get heart palpitations because it can affect hormonal. Your interest in romance fizzles. It's just because you're tired and overworked. Your digestion slows because you're not eating enough, so it can cause digestion issues in some women. Or you always seem to feel cold, which is a classic weakening thyroid as well. So these are just some of the things to look out for when you're trying on an intermittent fasting diet lifestyle. It can be beneficial. It's one of the ones that I actually can promote, but not strict to the 16 hours of not eating because it's too long for me and I can't perform in the gym the way I like to, but some women can. And I have a strong metabolism, my hormones are strong, my thyroid is good, everything is in check for me, so I keep an eye on that. But you really need to manage the symptoms and manage your energy and your clarity and your performance in the gym as well. And your digestion. Your digestion has to stay strong too. So if you want to try intermittent fasting, it's one of the ones that I do like, but you have to build into it, or you just have to listen to your biofeedback and manage it. And it may just be having longer spreads of not eating instead of calling it intermittent fasting. You might want to go 8, 10, 12 hours without eating as opposed to, and that's where I always try to say, don't have your nighttime eating because it's not productive. It's usually emotional and it's not aiding your weight loss and your performance in the gym. So that's intermittent fasting in a nutshell.